Good morning and welcome to Wake Up to Broker It with Mark, episode number 30 for 2025. Wow, sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit. Yeah, no matter which side of the transaction on, you may be seeing more of those. If you're representing the seller, you need to review the sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit to make sure that you're presenting it in its best light to the seller and making sure that you're preserving the seller's options as it relates to that. Yes, and you need to have the conversations with the seller way before that happens, before you receive an offer that's contingent on the sale or the lease of the buyer's property. Why? Because many buyers are in a situation where they have to sell their current home before they buy the next one. If you're representing a buyer, you need to discuss their options if they have a home that they need to sell before they buy the next one. You need to review the sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit to make sure that you're doing it as part of the offer in the best possible light to make sure that you utilize the contingency exhibit correctly. Earnest money will be important. It'll be important to both sides of the transaction as it relates to sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit, and you need to make sure that you understand how it can be returned to the buyer or how it could be claimed by the seller. And you need to know about the gotcha that's in the sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit, which is if the contingency period ends without the buyer selling their current home, the agreement terminates. Not that it has the ability for either party to terminate it, it terminates automatically. Oftentimes we see people that continue on with the process. They do an amendment, extending the contingency period. The one thing they don't do is an amendment to reinstate the purchase and sale agreement to make sure that it's still enforced, because again, if the contingency period ends, even if both parties want to continue on, the agreement automatically terminates. Why does that matter? Because at some point, if the seller gets fed up with the buyer and the buyer hasn't sold their property, what happens to the earnest money and where it is and what part of the transaction it's in will make a difference. Wow. Call your broker if you have questions. Notice I said call your broker. I didn't say go out on rocks and ask the experts. Make sure you call your broker. Enjoy your day, enjoy your weekend, happy selling, and be ready for the sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit. Thanks. Bye-bye.